Now the season is split into divisions, with the highest scoring drivers together here. Felix and Defsun charged into La Source hairpin together, and Nova dropped from 5th on the grid to 8th. Currently leading the championship by 7 points, he was in trouble of losing that lead to his teammate Felix, who is now fighting for the lead with Defsun. Further back, Chewy tapped 93 onto the runoff at Les Combes, and 93 then went off around the outside of Roussel, enabling Nova to carve his way up through the midfield. Out in front, Felix had the lead, but Defsun was sticking like glue up to the chicane, where he pounced. Dawson and Darkrai were having a similar battle, but it went wrong for them and Nova slipped by. Dawson recovered and fought back, and on lap 3 he slipped into 3rd place, on a corner where overtaking is unexpected. Certainly it threw Chewy off balance. Further back, among the rest of the best, Ismadelix skipped over the inside of Radillon and incurred a penalty. Paying it off, he was jumped by DJ and X11. Before long, X11 made a mistake and Ismadelix got past, but couldn't find a way to overtake DJ. A lap later, X11 crashed into the back of him, and he only just managed to drift through La Source while X11 lost it. 5 laps in, and the top 2 were still at it, trading places at the end of Kemmel Straight, but with Felix putting more strain on his tyres than Defsun. Further back, the fight for 3rd was just as heated, Nova all over the back of Dawson, but Dawson keeping his cool. But the VLX drivers got the better exit out of Hicks and made a beautiful coordinated move to pass around Pouhon, pushing Dawson back down to 5th. The back and forth between Defsun and Felix just kept going, and it was anyone's guess who'd triumph in this first half of the race. After pitting, Nova found he was behind Darkrai, running 3rd in the championship, but not quite so hot on this particular race, and just holding Nova up. With Dawson right behind, they came into Les Combes, and while Nova managed to get past, Dawson was still stark and clearly frustrated. Defsun stayed out a lap longer than Felix, pitting on lap 8, having preserved his tyres well enough to pull off a one-stop strategy and be the only driver to do so. When he got out, he was immediately pounced upon by Nova, but Nova, lacking top-end power in his Mazda, failed to defend. Defsun was just able to overtake without losing time around Les Combes, and continued on his drive to make up time against Felix. Darkrai had caught up with these two, and now Nova was in a Phoenix sandwich. He wasn't able to keep up pace with Defsun, and little by little lost time on the blitzing Canadian. By the end of lap 10, Defsun had caught up with Chewy. A bit of contact between them into the chicane, and Chewy darted into the pits. Just a lap later and Felix made his second stop. Defsun caught up, and the advantage of his one-stop strategy became crystal clear, now essentially uncatchable. Darkrai and Chewy duked it out near the end of the race in a battle for 5th. Darkrai darted left, but it was an ill-judged move. They both rode roughly over the curbs of Les Combes, but coming out of Pouhon, Darkrai had a good run and squeezed past his VLX rival, securing 5th place. The winner, of course, was Defsun, who kept up with Nova while keeping tyre wear low enough for a single pit stop. Felix was 2nd, and Dawson, after various ups and downs, came 3rd. It was a smoky start for JL from pole, but he held on to his position through La Source. Fabuki held off Fullness and Dr. LJ, taking 3rd place. The pack was in close proximity for the first lap, with a battle for 6th developing behind Oyu. 5's, Fullness, Neutron. Neutron fell back and Superhero stepped up, and they came 3 wide into the chicane. Superhero tried to squeeze through but had nowhere to go, with 5's and Fullness holding their lines. 5's got away, but Fullness was now in Superhero's sights. On lap 2, Fabuki took 2nd from JL. Oyu had caught up to Dr. LJ, who got it wrong on the approach to the chicane and went gliding across the track, twice. Thankfully it didn't cause a collision. Toward the end of lap 3, a battle for the lead was developing between Wittmann, Fabuki and JL. Wittmann managed to hold off both attackers for the time being. Meanwhile, Fives and Superhero were having it out between them. Superhero advanced and went toe-to-toe with Oyub. It was a close battle, but Oyub had the advantage of experience. Fives almost lost it, and Fullness took advantage. The two of them went side by side around Stavelot and Paul Frere, but Fullness was on the dirty line, so Fives won out. Wittmann and JL were now pulling away from Fubuki, who was starting to flounder. Wittmann bumped over a curb out of Redlon, and that was just the opportunity for JL to make his move. He got by with plenty of manoeuvring room into Les Combes and began to pull away. Wittmann lost grip around the high-speed bend at the end of that lap and completely lost it, slamming the wall. Following his recovery, he was hounded by Oyub. The Frenchman had shown a very consistent pace throughout, delivering 2:19 lap times like clockwork. He stormed past Wittmann on the Kemmel Straight. Wittmann found himself fending off Superhero, with the newcomer looking a bit unpredictable. There was a chain reaction of mistakes and corrections which ended up with both drivers ploughing into the gravel trap. Fives swept past, inheriting 4th place. Oyub overtook Fubuki in the pits by taking less fuel on board, Fubuki having come out with a full tank. In spite of the added weight, Fubuki managed to stay right behind his opponent and make a move into the chicane. Now it was Oyub hanging on and waiting for an opportunity. They caught up with Pamigo, who was on a one-stop strategy but didn't have the pace to make it work as Defsun had. They both got past well enough, but it disrupted Oyub enough that he started to lose ground, and Fubuki began pulling steadily away. At the halfway point of the race, Fives seemed to be losing it a little, exploring the runoff on the chicane's exit, losing a lot of time and getting dirty tyres from it. And then around La Sorte, he was far too optimistic and picked up another lot of dirt and dust from the runoff there as well. Oyub eventually caught back up with Fubuki and their battle resumed. In a reversal of their situation 2 laps ago, Oyub had the better line and enjoyed a few moments of relative solitude, but Fubuki, never a quitter, caught up and maintained a tenacious pursuit, keeping a constant presence in the Frenchman's mirrors. Fubuki saw his chance and decided to go for it. In the closing stages of the race, Fullness was going after Fives. Remarkably, they went side by side through La Sorte, and just ahead of Eau Rouge, Fullness just squeezed his way in front, leading Fives up the hill. Unable to overtake on the Kemmel Straight, Fives outbraked Fullness and made a daring pass around the outside into Les Combes. Fullness held on and retook the position right before Pouron, but he was vulnerable in terms of exit speed. Fives was so close behind that he had to have a look on the outside to avoid a collision, but for the time being Fullness was on top of the situation. Thanks to the long struggle for second, JL had established a strong lead and won the race, another feather in the VLX cap. Oyub and Fubuki took it right to the end, with a very controversial incident on the chicane. It was found by the marshals Fubuki had pushed Oyub off the course, and the penalty was awarded. Oyub second, Fubuki third. Just a little way behind them, Fives and Fullness were still fighting, and Fives just had the edge. Due to current personal circumstances, it wasn't possible to show footage from the 3rd Division as well. Billocks of GTMX, VC Most of Estacas, and newcomer Autista were the winners of their respective groups, with a broader collection of teams and drivers having the means to win races with the top divisions split off. Due to current personal circumstances, it wasn't possible to show footage from the 3rd Division as well, and certainly those drivers deserve recognition. We may expect to see some movement between the bottom of Division 1 and the top of Division 2, with a number of drivers at around 100 points. What is for certain is that the next race at Mount Panorama will have its fair share of thrills and even more spills. Will Felix snatch the lead, or can Nova keep his cool? Can't wait to find out. And I can't wait to tell you about the strategy game I made, Formula XD. I'm still working on a huge update for it, but let me tell you what's already there. 18 scenarios and a 10-year career mode, dozens of drivers with their own quirks, 30 different circuits with all kinds of different racing conditions, deal with suppliers and sponsors, temperamental drivers, and with engineers willing to go above and beyond so that you can fulfill your secret fantasy of being a slightly less crooked version of Flavio Briatore. But the thing is, can you manage?